plane, on your mobile, and on your smart speaker. You're listening to the voice of a new generation. KIC Radio.
Yes, people, welcome back to the Southbound Podcast, episode 13. I'm joined again by Cameron and Jacob. Lads, I mean, I'll ask you both, to be fair. How's everyone feeling today?
I'm happy to go first, but yeah, all right. I think it's got to a point where the football almost doesn't affect you as long as it used to, does it? But I don't know whether Cam agrees. Don't want to start too depressing.
Yeah, honestly, Jacob, I do agree with you. It's at a point now where whenever the Wolves' final whistle goes, I just take a deep breath and move on with my week. I'm done with letting the football ruin my mood with how many losses I expect us to have by the end of the season, let alone at this point already. But what did we all think of the game? It wasn't the best, was it really? I'm sure we'll get into it, but Sami, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, obviously it's nice to hear how you guys are feeling and everything. Obviously, yeah, we'll go over to the first half. Not really much happened, I'd say, in the first half. Obviously, there was a couple of instances that happened. Obviously, I'm going to start off. Sarabia's missed chance, obviously, by Semedo. Obviously, beautiful run by Semedo. Never knew that man was as pacey as, people underestimate him to be. But yeah, obviously Sarabia's missed chance. Guys, what are your thoughts on Sarabia that game? Obviously, we saw how he had that chance, and then later on in the game, I don't know, he didn't really show that explosive impact. Cam, I'll start with you, lad.
Yeah, Sarabia's attempt, I think it was a hard one for him to take down, in fairness. Brilliant run from Semedo. He did really well to outpace his marker, driving up that right flank, but then brilliant cross in. I thought, in honesty, it was like really whipped. Did well to find Sarabia and marked at the back post, perfectly onto his foot for the volley at goal. I think he was quite unlucky, Sarabia, in one way, because it's hard to catch that as it is, pluck it out the air, but hits it over the bar. Maybe could have got it on target, but I feel like I can't be too harsh, as much as I am part of the Pablo Sarabia haters. Jacob, what are your thoughts? Because I know you're not too fond of the man yourself.
Yeah, I think you've got a bit more of a vendetta against him than myself, but still, I believe that he doesn't tend to add much to Sarabia, but I will sting his praises slightly for Saturday. I thought, in terms of battle, in terms of fight to win the ball, it was one of his better games. We always say with Sarabia that he's good technically and not so good doing that hard bit. For me, it seemed the opposite on Saturday. It almost seemed like he was doing that hard bit, technical side that let him down. But as for the missed opportunity, it was, I'm not going to criticise him for that because he's in the right place, which is more than what we can say about our forward on Saturday. He was never in the right place before his departure in the first half. But great run by Semedo, good cross, and I'm not going to dig Sarabia out too much for it. I think I'll head back to you now, Sammy.
Yeah, obviously I've got to agree with you both, to be fair, in your opinions on Sarabia. But yeah, we'll move over to the next topic then. A very controversial decision that had led numerous Arsenal fans questioning the refereeing on Saturday. Lewis Skelly's red card. Lads. Who? I mean, me personally, I don't. It's not a red, but yeah, I don't know how everyone else's opinions are on it. I'll start off with you, Mr. Robert Jones.
I think for me, yeah, it's never a red card. You see multiple challenges like that in a game where it's simply just taking one for the team. It's a yellow card. Get on the rest of the game. Doherty's breaking out, which I suppose at the time, TalkSport on the way back was saying that is it denial of a goal scoring opportunity? But we're talking about a 30-odd-year-old Matt Doherty who was about half a year away from his goal. So no, that's not it. I can almost see a little bit of dangerous play because he's gone down his ankle, but it's never a red card. And it's one of them where slowed down, it looked far worse as well. So that's why VAR didn't overturn it. But I'll be surprised if Cam disagrees. So go with Cameron now.
It's a red all day, isn't it? No, I'm just after that Gunner rage bait today. Probably not a red card in fairness, but obviously we aren't going to complain and start going, VAR, please intervene. I wasn't surprised it also didn't overturn the red card because in the slow down replay that VAR was apparently shown, it does show the Mile Lewis Skelly studs going into the back of Doherty's legs. Now, as you said, Doherty at this age, I'm expecting him to have a walking stick, not running to make a break. But yeah, it was both feet up, and the studs were going in behind him above his ankle. So dangerous play was only the real way I could see him getting sent off. But Arsenal fans are screaming about this vendetta against them from a specific referee who was there on Saturday, and I'm just going to say it was a red card just for that sweet, sweet salt from the Arsenal fan base.
I would like to add a bit about Arsenal fans while we're on them. And there's a lot of Arsenal fans that are lovely, but there's so many that are so insufferable. Like the same as vendetta against Arsenal. Like what? I think people say what it's a consequence to get Lewis Skelly. What not playing in the next 3 games? But not be funny. What even is a Lewis Skelly? If they're going to get anyone banned, why would it be this lad who's played about 3 games? Isn't even their best left back at the club anyway? And I don't understand it.
I mean, what I'd add to that is, if anything, surely it's a Michael Oliver assist for their goal. He sent off Miles Lewis Skelly, forces Calafiori to come off the bench and come on, and he gets the winner. So surely the referees are helping you in this case, Arsenal fans. But no, jokes aside, Arsenal fans, a lot of you are lovely. The ones I know personally are all lovely, but there are certainly some delusional sections of your fan base. That's all I have to really say.
Yeah, so but that's all that I was really to write home about in that first half. Was controversial red card. But if we get onto the second half, it almost felt like it was a very frustrating start by Wolves. Must be said, where playing against 10 men, it almost felt like we had the 10 men.
Yeah.
I also had with referee Oliver. It almost felt like I said to my dad, but it feels like he's just trying to even it up all this second half. Even though both fans were still chanting, things about him. I don't know if you thought the first 10 minutes we struggled to get control of that all.
Yeah, I really thought when that second half started, we could have been a lot better. I dread to think what was said by both managers at half time. Arsenal coming out seemingly with another set of lungs, the way they're running at our team, causing problems for them. Mikel Arteta's words must have certainly motivated them. Whereas it looks like Vitor Pereira almost drained the motivation out of our team at half time. They came out being very sloppy, can't even get out their own half. When it's 11-10 in terms of your man advantage, how are you getting dominated even more by a 10-man Arsenal team compared to the 11 on the pitch of Wolves? I just don't understand how you can sustain that sort of pressure and not even be able to play out of your own half and make advantage of it. But that advantage didn't last long, did it? And we'll move on. We'll move on to that later. But I think there's some worse causes about that sending off and the Arsenal match itself, which is a match, in fairness, we all expected to get battered in. I think the narrow scoreline did us some favours with our goal difference, and that's all I can really say regarding it. But before we get on to that Gomes sending off, Jacob, what did you think about the Cunha attempt from Sarabia's corner, which was dragged just wide? Do you think he could have done better? I personally do.
I definitely do, and I think a Mateus Cunha from about a fortnight ago, all that ban, buries that 10 times, 11 times out of 10. But yeah, I mean, it was better for that 5 or 10 minute spell, wasn't it? We had the first Cunha chance that led to that corner, actually. David Raya making a very good save. I thought Raya was incredible on the weekend. Despite not testing him enough, when he was tested, he was fantastic. But I will give a slight bit of praise to him. I don't give much praise to Hwang Yi-chan was actually the one who started our full momentum there. A bit of a pop shot from a long way out, but forcing a good save out of David Raya, which not only got the fans up a bit more, but got the team riled up a bit more, it seemed. But as you say, when you should have scored, And we'll get on to the next talking point, which is a red card for João Gomes, which I know me and you had different opinions on at the time, actually. I believe that a player like João Gomes maybe should have been subbed off, but I didn't blame him for the red card because he's playing the game where he plays every time you have Gomez on the pitch, he's always at risk of a yellow card. He plays at such a pace where he's going to commit the odd challenge like that. So maybe he should have been hooked off, but I don't know how you felt about the red. Well, I do know how you felt at the time. But I don't know if your opinion has changed.
Yeah, I have to admit, Jacob, I've cooled off a bit since the time. I think in that moment, I was very angry at throwing away a good chance of getting 3 points is ultimately what it becomes when you've got 11 versus 10. But in the nature of João Gomez's role in the team, you have to accept as both a fan and I'm sure Vitor Pereira does as a manager that you're going to pick up a lot of cards as we've always seen from João Gomes in his Wolves career. He's not called the Pitbull for no reason. I think personally, he's actually quite lucky. I do think Arsenal fans are right with their whining in one sense, in terms of I think João Gomez's second yellow card could have easily been a straight red. I do think it was a really rash challenge at the time where we were sitting in the stadium. We couldn't really have the best view on it, but upon seeing the replays, I do understand. However, I just think it's poor game management from Vitor Pereira in general, personally. I think when you've got that man advantage, you've got someone who can be a loose cannon at times, like João Gomes. I think you have to bring on one of your other midfielders or even maybe another attacker. As without Strand Larsen going off, we struggled for a target man. Although admittedly, on the point of the Norwegian, he was terrible when he was on the pitch. To touch on the points you mentioned, David Raya, I have to agree. I thought he was phenomenal on Saturday. I thought he made some excellent saves when he was rarely tested. Hwang Hee-chan and Pablo Sarabia, while I am not the biggest advocate for either of them, they've really put themselves about on Saturday. They've really fought their ground. They did well to really win the ball back and press a lot, which is something I think we have been specifically critical of for those two players in previous weeks. So it was good to see them changing their ways. But yeah, the sending off. I think he's actually quite lucky to not get a red. I don't know if you agree with that, Jacob.
Yeah, I think it's very rare you see a referee give a straight red when a player's already on a yellow card, though, don't you? It's almost like unforeseen rule that it's always a second yellow, regardless. Usually, unless it's a violent conduct thing. But yeah, I think it's a worse tackle than the Lewis Kelly one, in all honesty. But yeah, after that red card, we all knew what was coming. The atmosphere drained suddenly out of the stadium. The Arsenal fans were suddenly up and singing, and we knew exactly what was going to happen. And the inevitable happened shortly after. Calafiori, who came on to replace Lewis Skelly, as you alluded to earlier, assist by Mr. Michael Oliver. For me, it's a fantastic finish there, but a disappointing goal because Semedo originally gets rid of it. And as much as I've praised Pablo Sarabia for his work rate, his effort, he was too slow to that second ball. Only by about a second, but that second is all you need when you're playing against the top caliber side as Arsenal. That second switch off is what cost us, 2 points essentially on Saturday. Because I don't think we would have gone on to score with our 10 men versus their 10 men. I think at that point, advantage Arsenal, simple quality they have over our quality. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the goal, Cameron?
Just to touch on the point you said before I go on to the goal, I think it really is the defensive quality of Arsenal that is where they are in the league. I think we've all known that for the past few seasons, really. They probably have the best centre-half partnership in the league, a very solid goalkeeper, even though he's had some criticism at times, and two good fullbacks. Even Lewis Skelly emerging recently gives them further depth in that area. I think that's really to blame with how the result went. I think it's that defensive quality that left Arsenal fans so assured they would still get a result. And in honesty, it left me feeling they'd still get a result even when it went to 10 men. I don't know if that's pessimism in terms of the Wolves we've been seeing as of late, or a respect to that Arsenal side. But the goal itself, I have to agree. A Martinelli cross headed out by Semedo. I think Semedo makes the right decision, in fairness. He's got a man lurking behind him, waiting at the back post for that cross. But yeah, Pablo Sarabia, when you switch off for a second in the Premier League, it's going to cost you. And that enabled Ricardo Calafiori to get that run in behind and strike home. I think it's a great goal. I saw a few Wolves fans saying Jose Schär should have done better, but I don't think that's even possible. It was so perfectly hit into the bottom right corner, but Sarr still manages to get his fingertips to it. And I think that was actually like impressive in itself. I don't think anyone's saving that. It really hurt seeing that goal go in, because at the end of the day, we all knew how the game was going to end from that point forward. I didn't expect us to really win from that point. I thought the only chance we really have is if we throw on all our forwards and manage to get a point. I would have liked to see Carlos Forbes introduced into this game for his rapid pace compared to the wingers on the pitch. I don't know if you agree with that, Jacob.
Yeah, so there's 2 points I want to make here. Before we forget, the owners were at the game this time, not just Jeffy. The main man, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce here.
Well, Wang Chang, isn't it?
Is that how you pronounced it?
I'm not. I might have butchered the pronunciation, but that's how I've seen it read.
But yeah, this led to obviously the typical Jeff Cheek chance, but also a chance to back the team or sell the club, which obviously directed at our owner. But it's not just the ownership that let us down on Saturday. I don't want to get on Vitor Pereira's back, but I thought his substitutions were wrong, as well as sticking with the same team from Chelsea. I thought as soon as Arsenal went 1-0 up, or actually even at half time when you have that man advantage, people like Rodrigo Gomes, who are going to have this pace to hurt them, who's going to be direct and get at this headhand vulnerable Arsenal, should have been on the pitch, even Guedes. But at 1-0, we saw Jean-Luc de Bellegarde introduced, which to me was laughable almost. The only thing he did was almost get on all fours in the penalty area and blame it on his hamstring. I mean, for me, double-ended question. What do you think about the atmosphere towards the owners and also the sub that Vitor Pereira made? Do you think he made the right ones at the right time?
Well, to start off on Vitor Pereira's game management, I was very unimpressed. In my notes here, that's most of my notes really was about Vitor Pereira's game management. And I know I've said to you at points since the match, but I think that is to blame for how the result went. I never want to be on a new manager's case too early, because I'm not going to blame every problem we have on them. I think that's quite shallow, and it's just not how football works. It's not that simple. But I do think for Saturday's loss, he was heavily to blame. I think he should have told the team to be a bit more attacking, perhaps in the mentality. When Arsenal went down to 10 men, I think we were extremely passive. And then to come out after half time and to just not make enough changes, not having any intent. When we're being dominated by 10 men versus 11, when to start that second half, I think it's embarrassing. I agree that Rodrigo Gomes, I think he has to be in every starting lineup at the moment. He's one of our only players, other than João Gomes, who shows passion and desire and willingness to fight for the shirt. But I just don't understand why he doesn't start. Even his cameo against Chelsea he was probably the best player on the pitch that day again in terms of energy. I think it was really naive of Vitor to have the same starting lineup from a game which Wolves played terribly in, as we all said last week on the podcast itself. But I don't know. I think our football was negative overall for the whole time Vitor was like making the decisions regarding it. I think as a manager in the Premier League, you've got to surely see that your game management needs to change. Bellegarde, I've left him till last. And what are you doing? How do we not even know his best position after 2 years of him at the club? He came in, we thought we'd really got a good player. He was quite well known in the French league. His performances for Strasbourg were respected, and he had good highlights reels, as many players do when they join you.
His
I just
debut
don't.
for us, he was fantastic as well, wasn't he, against Liverpool?
Yeah, against Liverpool, I completely agree. And he's showed moments like his goal against Forest earlier this season, but he can't seem to find a place in the team or a position. And I really think he needs to just be moved on at this point. You're not going to fit into any of the previous three managers' tactical systems, and there's clearly not a place for you here. I think he's a player who doesn't necessarily have the attitude problems that some do. He seems like a likable person. He seems like a good professional, but it's his quality on the pitch that is unfortunately letting him down. And in our current predicament, that's why we're where we are. But to move on to the owners, they deserve every bit of protesting they get. I think it needs to go a bit further, if I'm honest. I think before long we will be seeing people bring banners or flags with stuff written on them to the ground, because that's the sort of direction the club's heading in terms of its trajectory right now. We're not looking like we're going to find a way out of this. And I know me and Jacob personally both feel that the writing's already on the wall for the club. Interestingly, to touch on transfer news briefly, Kevin Danzo, Wolves' long-time target. We've spoke about him in the summer. We spoke about him in the winter. We've spoken about him in previous seasons as well. The Austrian former Southampton defender. Wolves have offered 22 mil, according to L'Equipe, the French newspaper, and Lens are holding out for 25. Wolves do not seem to want to pay an extra 3 million to get their number one target of the last 3 or 4 transfer windows. What does that tell you about this ownership? What does this tell you when Rene are now interested because they didn't realise he was available for so cheap and look set to buy this 25 mil release clause? I'm assuming it is. I think the owners just need to do what we were chanting: back the club or sell the team. Like, you're not doing anything. You're just letting us stagnate. You're letting us rot away, and before we know it, I'm sure we'll just be back mid-table in the Championship. But I hate to be the voice of pessimism every week. Jacob, please find something good to say about Wolves.
Well, I do have something good to say about Wolves, actually, on the topic of defenders. We'll speak about Kevin Danso. I thought Emmanuel Agbadou really came into his own in that second half
Phenomenal performance
against
Saturday.
Arsenal. One that stands out to me was a break. One was it Havertz that he made the slide tackle on, or Martinelli, one of the two.
Martinelli. I think he did brilliantly to keep up with someone as pacey as Martinelli and who does have skill. I think Havertz is very technical as well. And I think Agbadou absolutely dominated. He had the most aerial duels won on the pitch, most tackles made. I saw some other good reading stats to do with his performance. And I really think he has been really good, like past 2 games against Chelsea and Arsenal. I think in his performances before, we've been a bit critical of certain aspects of his performance. But to be doing this all on the wrong side of the pitch, it's the only thing giving me any kind of hope of our goal problems kind of easing up a bit, really. Because hopefully when Totti comes back and goes onto that left-hand side and is fully fit, it allows Emmanuel Agbadou to really flourish on that right-hand side and use stuff like his long diagonal passing, which he seems to enjoy but can't make the most of on his current side of the pitch.
Yeah, so I fully agree. I think he's still on that long side. That's still clear. Still takes him about 2-3 touches to get control of the ball because he's on that long side. I might personally be accustomed to seeing him play in the middle of a back three because he has that physical presence where if he is one-on-one with a strong striker like a Kai Havertz or other names escape me at this moment, there is other strikers that like to bully a defender, he won't get bullied in that sense. I do think it will be on the right naturally, but I wouldn't also be opposed to seeing him in that middle, almost like a Connor Cody in possession where he can spray that ball, but out of possession, that bit of a brute, a bit of a bully at the back. But overall, we're talking about another frustrating journey to Molineux as we need to prepare ourselves for another one this weekend.
One of the big ones.
A bit of a noisy neighbours. Aston Villa, who have a lot more to be noisy about than we do at the minute. It must be said, a fantastic side, as much as it pains me to say it. with some real good quality. Players like Morgan Rogers, I'm a very big fan of. I think
I think he's brilliant.
fantastic. However, and I'm not saying I think we'll get anything out of this game. I do think Villa are a team that can be got at, can be made to look exploitable, as we saw just this weekend against West Ham, towards the back end of that game. Cam, what are your thoughts going into this Midlands derby on the weekend?
Yeah, when I was looking at the fixture list, I was thinking we'd lose the last two, which we did, but I'm not going to say the points we've already said across the previous podcast against Chelsea and today for Arsenal. Villa are a side where I think there are more cracks in the wall for us to exploit than there are the previous two games. Villa are a side who are in a completely different level to us now, which is crazy to say. I remember when they were kept up by a ghost goal and should have gone down while we were the ones laughing at them being in Europe. But how times change, and it seems we're the ones who are going to go down, and they're the ones after Europe yet again, after having Champions League and doing very well in it, I must say. I do respect this Villa side, the way they're set up. Unai Emery having complete control of everything in the club, almost like he's running a real life FM save with how well it's going. I think they just have so much talent, and I'm not as much as a hater of Villa as I am obviously West Bromwich Albion and Birmingham. I think they are both much bigger rivalries for us personally. I'm not sure how far you agree with that, Jacob. I think it's only in recent years, because us and Villa have been the only ones in the same division, that our rivalry has grown a lot more, I feel. But yeah, noisy neighbours, and I think they'll have every right to be noisy again. I'm not really looking forward to it again, but I feel like I say that every week. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to hope something changes between now and then. I'm going to pray that it's a 1-0 Wolves win, but I don't think that's realistic.
Well, as your point about not having a hatred towards Villa, I fully agree. I think
I fiercely dislike them, but
I think with Aston Villa, I have a lot of friends who are Villa fans, etc. And I think it's more of there's local pride on the line more than a disdain towards that football club. I actually have a lot of respect for what they're doing at the minute, as much as it pains me to see, as that, like you say, was us for them years where they were struggling, but they're just owned so much better than us, and they're very ambitious. Like Axel Disasi going in now, another good signing for them, I believe. Also recruit people like Marlon for their bench.
Wow, that's a phenomenal signing. Even looking at João Felix, I know he's been a long-term target of theirs, and they're going to try and get a deal for him over the line before the end of the window. It just shows the calibre Villa are now and how attractive a proposition it is to play for them. And I respect it. They're a very well-run club, and they have been for quite a while now. But it just makes us realise, why are we not the ones trying to tear down our ownership for the mismanagement and letting our club stagnate the way it has? Years ago, we could have been far clear of this Villa team by now in terms of the level we could have reached with the right backing, and it all just stopped.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to see. However, just speaking in isolation towards this Villa game, Villa haven't won at Molineux since lockdown in a game that's obviously behind closed doors, and Anwar El Ghazi penalty late in the day saw them win that game. So we do usually do quite well against Aston Villa. Last year ended a 1-1 draw here at Molineux. Hwang Hee-chan scored before an immediate equaliser by Pau Torres, if I do remember correctly.
Correct.
But earlier in the season, I made a trip to Villa Park, and it was apparent that what we said earlier rings true. They were vulnerable in that first half. Wolves under Gary O'Neill we were much the better team. We silenced that Villa Park atmosphere, and we should have
brilliant goal from Cunha.
Yeah, a fantastic goal from Cunha, capitalised on a Diego Carlos mistake. But that second half, it's when it rang through of how much the quality difference there is between the two sides. We just struggled to get close to Villa, and as soon as one goal went in, two immediately followed. Was it Duran and
Yeah, Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins and someone else scored, didn't they? I can't remember who scored. I can't remember the
I
score.
want to say Rogers, but I can't remember myself. No.
I don't think it was. I can't remember there. But yeah, hoping for a different result this time out, but I don't see it. Only thing that has me quite optimistic is Villa obviously have a big game in the Champions League this weekend, this week even. They don't play Champions games on weekends.
No, it was Ezri Konsa with that second goal.
Oh yeah,
question.
off the corner, off the corner.
Yeah.
But, hey, yeah.
I was more to speak about a positive from Saturday. I was very impressed, but we actually didn't concede any set pieces. It was open play, that 1-0 Arsenal goal, and I was really impressed.
We actually managed to get them down to 10 men off one of their corners, which is very impressive for our standards.
Wow. I think that was my biggest shock on Saturday. I felt like we'd almost won the game, having not conceded a set piece. But it shows how small our standard is.
They didn't get their first corner until late in the first half, did they? And
I think that was definitely part of our game plan to stop them, because we seem to hoof the ball up the field instead of giving them a chance to even get to the corner flag.
But do you know what would be a better alternative to that? Maybe learning how to defend a corner. But Villa, big game for them, like I was saying, in the Champions League. If they win, they get through automatically, providing other results go their way, I believe. If not, they go into this playoff round. A game against Celtic that you would expect them to win, but still a big game nonetheless. I know Marlon can't play in the Champions League. He's cup tied
until the next round.
So he probably will feature from the start on Saturday against Wolves.
Very scary player, I have to say. We all know the quality he's capable of at Dortmund. I think he was even the best player in that Champions League final last year, personally, for Dortmund.
Yeah, he was.
I don't think they should have subbed him off. I think that was where their pressure really suffered.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you for a score prediction now, which to probably the dismay of you probably don't want to be hearing that, but I'm still going to. I'm
going to be slightly optimistic. I'm going to say 1-1. I just really hope we hold out to get something from this game, but I ultimately see a loss.
Yeah, I think we'll give them a game, but I do think their quality will show.
I think it's purely based off the two squads.
Yeah, probably a 2-1. I could see us scoring first and then still losing.
Yeah. I don't think we have the bottle to come back if they score first. If we score first, I think maybe who knows what could happen. I think the game could go anywhere from us scoring first, but yeah, otherwise I don't really see it.
But yeah, I think probably we covered everything in this podcast.
I think that's time to wrap it up.
Hopefully we come back next week having a bit of pride in the derby and having hopefully one or two more players in before the deadline have been by next week. Yeah, it will have.
Yeah.
So we did unfortunately lose Sami due to technical difficulties halfway through, but I'll say goodbye on behalf of him. Cam, is there anything else you want to add before you go?
Nothing else I have to really add. Let's all hope Wolves make some signings and restore a bit of West Midlands pride in the derby on Saturday. But that's all from us at the South Bank podcast. I am Cameron Gorman. This is Jacob Jones. And you were previously joined by Sami Mohammed. From all of us here, goodbye and have a great week.
The voice of a new generation. This is KIC Radio.